Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Evaluation Subcommittee of the Fall River School Committee meeting to order for September 10th. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Hetzler?
Here.
Mr. Corey?
Here.
Mr. Martins?
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Can you join me in saluting the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have 3 items for discussion on the agenda. First one is the 2018-2019 evaluation process and our next steps in that process.
So if you open your folders, past the goals, there's the former process, which didn't meet the timelines with the district data. So last year we changed it to this November cycle.
I remember doing that,
And
yeah.
right now, we're in good position to meet the timeline. So it says September, October, I would submit a progress report, which I'm working on now. That's taking last year's goals and saying what I feel I did, and then submitting that to either this group first or to the committee as a whole, doesn't matter. And then from that, then the committee then, through your leadership, is given the tool, and then they work on the tool, and then they get it back to Deb to formulate with the chair. So we're on the timeline. You know, basically we have till the end of October, which seems doable. If it bleeds into November, that's fine too, because concurrent with that is also, as we talked about, establishing next year's goals. Next year's goals, because remember we wrote these goals before, but next year's goals are much more measurable and definitive. And I think I was happy to present them last night because I think it much more in line with what the committee wanted. As you see in the process, it says that I do a self-assessment, 2 to 4 district goals. We have more than that, but that's okay. And then a student learning goal, which is all the accountability stuff from the state. And then the third is a professional practice goal. For me, the professional practice goal was to give 2 things. It was informal written feedback and also to continue to improve communication with the school committee, which is always a challenge, right? So I actually had 2 goals in that regard that we can put into the evaluation tool. And then I was wondering if the committee wanted to add another one that we could add into the tool as well, or it doesn't matter to me, because we can take this tool and we can add in the any other indicators that the school committee wants to measure me on.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Superintendent, we had a pretty active goal-setting meeting. I thought that was I thought the goal agenda at that meeting was very aggressive, and I think that we're acting on, there's a lot of movement going on in the school department. So there's already been, in my estimation, a real good amount of growth from last year's agenda to what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I definitely think we improved this year on our ability to do this, A, by changing the cycle, B, by saying that we want to be much more measurable, and that's, you know, not like esoteric goals, but things that we can say, look, we move the needle on these things. Right now I'm working on this self-evaluation that I think you'll be happier with, because it will have some more deliverables in it. When I talked about my personal goals, my personal growth goals was to do more informal feedbacks, which I can show some evidence of to the committee. And then, in terms of communication, I can also show evidence of, and we'll put together a binder of artifacts, and the committee can look through all that and come up with judgments on where they think the performance landed.
Yeah. Like I said, there's been an aggressive goals agenda, and we're holding you to it. And,
Right.
and so far, there's been great delivery. One of the goals that we haven't really actively spoken of, I don't know how measurable this particular goal is that I see the morale, the overall morale in the school department heightened. I see a really healthy morale now, whereas 5-6 years ago, there was not quite a morale at this level of healthiness. So I don't know how you can measure that, but that's an
Right.
indicator to me that things are moving in the right direction.
You know, and I think those kind of comments can definitely be included in the summative language of the evaluation tool, because those are like, you're right, those are the things that are hard to measure, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, in next year's goals, we're actually looking at teacher retention rates and trying to really lay out some metrics that we could say that. But, you know, look, I can also write, how many grievances have you heard? You know what I mean? All those
Right,
kinds of...
grievances are down.
Right. I mean, all those kinds of things, I think, are indicators of the health of the district in terms
Yes.
of relational, you know, and then we can also show evidence of how much stuff do we, you know, how closely do we work with the FREA? How closely do we work with the FRAA? How are we working with our other labor unions to ensure that, you know, we're not bringing all sorts of problems to the committee to have to deal with, because we can fix these things ourselves. And that, you know, that's a quality of trust that I think is, you know, you build over time with people, you know what I mean? But, you know, those are the challenging parts of this work, you know what I mean? And, you know, no one's ever perfect. And if you look at page 3 of 7 on the tool, Deb, that's where you'll write in the specific ones.
So I had the goals from last year, and at the end of last year, we actually submitted them. So in that packet that Deb just handed out, you'll
Yeah.
see that we've already added all
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So your professional practice goals were added.
Yeah.
This tool.
As well as the
That's
district
your-
performance goals.
this tool.
The district improvement goals, straight from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
goals that we set.
Yeah. And then I'm going to add what I mentioned, because we can still, the other goals, so those are the, well, I guess those, we're going professional practice. So did you write those in there?
They might be. I was looking to see if they were word for word a minute ago. It seems like the,
Yeah,
it has your
Yeah.
communication.
So communication, but we'll also add the informal written feedback to principals and site visits. I mean, that's a whole other thing. It's like, how many times are you in schools, you know? And we'll put together in a self-evaluation, you know, examples of the weekly schedules and all those kinds of things to see, like, you know, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing, rather than, you know, going to conferences and stuff out of district.
Right.
You know, I'm here every day.
Every day.
Every day. You know,
Every day. I
and that-
called your office yesterday.
Yeah.
You were here on the site monitoring the building.
I'm always here. I mean, and you know, I always believe, you know, there's a lot of superintendents that believe, oh, you know, travel around the state, going to all these conferences, or around the country even. But the work's in the district, so you got to be here. So, you know, we're here. We're trying to be proactive, trying to attend as many events as we can on the weekends and those kinds of things, and we'll put that kind of stuff in the evaluation too, the community stuff that we go to and get involved in, which is also important as we build, you know, those kinds of relationships. But it's, you know, I think if we look at where we are on the calendar right now, today's September 10th. I'm hoping to be able to have the self-eval to the committee for the October meeting
That's in line with the timeline, so
Yeah.
that's good.
as an agenda item, but don't have to discuss, because that's just the first start of them reading. Then we'll come back and reconvene in this group, or we don't even have to,
I think,
because you can complete it by November.
right, that's the goal, is to have it presented in the November meeting.
Yes.
So if you get us the self-eval for the beginning,
Yes.
for our October meeting at the beginning of the month, we have the rest of that month and the first week of November
Yep.
to
That's what.
get the evaluation of the superintendent completed, where we hand it out to each member once we create the tool.
Yeah.
Everybody gets it. They get their self-evaluation. The artifacts are at the administration
Yeah.
building, and everybody individually does their own. I'll
Yep.
compile them.
Yeah.
Maybe Deborah will help me out.
Yeah, that's, so
Yeah,
under
well-
I guess it's under the open meeting law. They're all compiled and sent collectively to another individual, which is the school committee secretary, who then works with the chair of the subcommittee to make sure that you get compiled, so you have a composite, and then up to you to pick what comments you want to share at the public
Right.
meeting.
Right, which is what we did last year. So,
Yeah, so Deb will work very closely with you on doing that, but, and essentially what we'll do is, we'll essentially give every school committee member an envelope with the self-evaluation and the tool, and then directions. And we'll write, that's another thing we'll do this year, is the directions, so specifically everyone knows where the binder is, where, if they have questions, all that kind of stuff. We'll give them all that, and they'll have all of October to get that done.
excellent.
I'd even like to acknowledge Dr. Malone. Even the level of appointments that have been made over the past year have been in line with the duties expected from these appointees. I'm really impressed. As a former school department employee, I'm impressed with the direction right now of a lot of the appointments and how they're carrying out their business. I see it actively. I do a lot of site visits. I know what's going on in the district, and I'm hearing lots of positive action. So, I mean, that needs to be acknowledged as well. And I don't want this to be construed as, well, we're giving you a free pass on this evaluation. That's not what this is. This is an acknowledgement of a school department moving in the right direction. And I'm really happy to see that.
All right, so as far as this first discussion goes, the evaluation process for the 2018-19 year,
Yep.
we're going to get the self-evaluation from you in the October meeting.
Yeah.
I think at the same time in that October meeting, we're going to have our evaluation tool to
Tool.
present. So right after you give your presentation,
We'll have it in the agenda.
we'll have it in the agenda. We'll have our finished copy that
Yeah.
we'll work on before that meeting.
Yep.
We'll make sure that the committee members like that.
Yeah.
If they want to add anything, that's the time. A week later, we're going to actually hand that tool out to everybody with any changes they decide to make at the full committee meeting.
So you're gonna need to schedule one more of these meetings within the next 2 weeks.
All right,
For the
to
purpose
double
of
check
finalizing the tool.
the tool, correct. But that's just going to, we're still going to run it by the full committee, obviously, in
Well, you-
October.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
And then-
but you recommend it to them.
Absolutely. And then in November, once, we'll hand out, like you were talking about a minute ago, we'll hand out the tool and have it compiled and completed for November's meeting.
Yep.
All right, so that's on the
We'll complete the whole
2018.
process by November's meeting.
Right, and that would take care of the evaluation process, the next steps. Any other comments on that discussion topic?
No.
All right, then the next one was the Finalize the evaluation tool. So I spoke to Deborah earlier. I showed her this document that we worked on at the end of last year. Basically just took those goals,
Yep.
put them into the tool.
Yep.
Obviously, we'll work on numbering it correctly because
Yeah, we'll
some of
get
the page numbers are,
we'll get the numbers right, and,
we can tweak this and add the other pages to the
Yeah.
back of it that incorporate the rest of the evaluation tool.
yep.
Do you understand what's going on there? So you notice we put the goals right in here.
Yeah.
That we set last year. So they're all in here. And we'll get it done that way. As you said, a couple weeks from now, we'll have another one of these meetings.
Yep.
We'll go over the draft, if you will.
Draft tool, that's all we'll have to do.
We'll approve it.
Yes.
And then we'll move forward. So that's discussion item number 2. Any questions on that one?
No.
All right, that brings us to the final topic for discussion, is the 2019-2020 evaluation process. And one of the first steps in that is obviously finalizing our goals. I took a step towards that last night at the full
Yep.
committee meeting.
I think we're on track, because we'll, we're probably ahead of track, because we'll have that done in October,
Right,
most likely.
Yeah, there was
Because
no-
there wasn't any, no, and you accepted the first draft, so we'll finalize, any details in that, and then we'll get that, we'll get that going, and then I think you keep the same timeline, because I think the timeline works. We're right on schedule right now.
Right, and we can present the final goals next meeting, that'd be the second read, ultimate approval.
Yes, and then the only thing I have to do better on that regard is more detailed May, is it May? Mid-year evaluation. Mid-cycle. That's no problem.
Right, and then that's obviously part of the whole evaluation
Yeah,
process. Yeah. And then, like you said, we'll just stick with the timeline. So those goals will be, between now and the full committee meeting that's coming up.
Yep,
Members of the committee will reach out to you with any tweaks they have
Yep.
for the goals,
yep,
incorporate them,
Yep.
and we'll approve them the next meeting.
yeah. What I can probably do, with your permission, is, once Deb and I work on getting it all aligned, we can send that in a Friday email saying, per the subcommittee wanted you to have this, if you have any comments, get them to the subcommittee for the next meeting.
We could do that.
You know what I mean?
That's a good idea. We can definitely
Because then they
incorporate
have another
that.
bite at the apple.
Right, they get another opportunity to tweak the
Right.
language and the goals. That
Right.
way they're,
Right,
everybody's content at the full committee meeting.
right.
Yeah, that's open and transparent. That's awesome. Yep. And in January, you give us a progress report.
Yeah, May.
In May.
That's the
That's
old
the
one,
old
Tom.
one.
Oh, that's the old one.
This is
Okay.
the new.
Okay,
Yeah, you guys voted that one last year.
Before we recognize some of the hangups of,
right.
you know.
Yeah, I think the new cycles makes a lot, and I'm doing this cycle with principals now because the data doesn't come out. It's
And-
like hard to say, did you move it or not?
Right.
In your past administrations in different school districts, did you have a goals-setting meeting like you've had with us?
Yeah, I've pretty much, since day one, since my first year as a superintendent, we've done the same exact process every year. Except the first couple, I had facilitated by someone else. Then you realize you don't need to get it facilitated by someone else. Especially once we all start knowing each other and knowing the system, it all just kind of gels because we know what we got to do. You know what I mean? But definitely the same process is something that I've used because I believe in it. I think it's important that we show up from a district perspective with the things that my team thinks are important, and here's from the school committee the things that they think are important, and then we meld the two. It's just how you win. Yeah, unless there's more. I mean, we got 9 good goals.
Well, we had a good session a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. It was a good session. We had a chance to air out and discuss.
So
you
they
know.
call it even though it's a public meeting, it's called a workshop. So it's a one-time. The school committee is allowed to engage in different kind of dialogue because it's you're not taking up issues. You're working together to construct something positive. And if you don't do it that way, there's no way to get that done within the open meeting law process.
Excellent. Anything else on that evaluation process? Any new business? Anything else you want to add?
Is there anything else you want to tell me from any of the other people who aren't here?
Well, that's a very good call. Thank you for reminding me. Mr. Martins, he's a member of this subcommittee. He did send an email. Unfortunately, couldn't make it today. He's not present. He wishes to have his position known that the evaluation of the superintendent, in his opinion, should be definitive and measurable and subject to interpretation. And I hope that we can reach all those goals for Mr. Martins.
Yep.
And I definitely wanted to go on record saying that. Thank you again.
Yep. No, I
Mr.
think
Superintendent.
I think we can. Deb and I will be back to this committee shortly with the next iteration of the tool.
Excellent. Is there a motion to adjourn?
There's a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.